Trumbo's is a film about Dalton Trumbo, who was a blacklisted screenwriter in the 40s and 50s in Hollywood. And that's the backdrop, but it's really a portrait of a man and his courageous refusal to be defeated by a very frightened American government at that time. It was right after World War II when America got into a Cold War with Russia, and the Red Menace, as they called it then, or the Communist Scare, the Communist Witch Hunt, the beginnings of McCarthy hearings, which were called the House Un-American Activities Committee hearings. And they singled out, people, especially teachers, but especially Hollywood's writers, because they were afraid that those writers, if they were communist, would get their propaganda into their subject matter and poison the minds of American citizens. That's how paranoid people were. And Trumbo was one of the first to be called before the committee, and was one of the first to be cited for contempt of Congress, and was one of the first to be jailed. And they evolved into a group that was called the Hollywood 10. And he never asked to be the spokesman for Hollywood 10, but it was his personality. It takes place in the time when he was first cited for contempt, which was 1947, at which point he was the highest paid screenwriter and most successful screenwriter in Hollywood. And the story really ends 13 years later when he is successful in getting his name back on the screen in not one but two films, Spartacus and Exodus, both huge hits at the time. In fact, then President Kennedy slipped out of the White House to go see Spartacus, and was quoted as saying, "I liked it very much." So it's that story, and everything that entails, which included Trumbo being jailed, Trumbo going into exile in Mexico to try to make a living. His film, The Brave One, won an Academy Award under the name Robert Rich, and when that name was announced at the Academy Awards, no Robert Rich appeared to take it. In fact, one of the people we quote in the film said, I think this is the only time that an Academy Award Oscar had gone unclaimed. And then word seeped out into the industry, and Trumbo was able to use that to his advantage and, to strike back at the powers. You see the little man triumph in some of his films, and Trumbo himself believed in unions. But no, communist propaganda, no, nonsense. I don't think it was his writing, I think it was his success. I think they were after people who, were influential. Trumbo himself said that, when a country is at war, the country gets nervous, the government gets nervous, and that was the Cold War, in the 1940s and 50s. But you saw today, post 9/11, in our country, when we invaded Afghanistan, and the Patriot Act was passed in a record, I think, 42 days or something like that. Blacklisting today happens, it's just much more insidious because we have the electronic age, and you can write a blog or send an email, and in the course of a day, you can create a national blacklist.